where the news never stops. LBC News.
24 minutes after 5 now here on LBC News with me, Chris Golds. Final preparations are being made for Prince Philip's funeral at Windsor Castle tomorrow. There will be just 30 guests. Everyone will be socially distanced and will wear face coverings. Buckingham Palace says the Queen has had to make difficult decisions in deciding who would be on the guest list. Head of the funeral service tomorrow of the Duke of Edinburgh, we're continuing to reflect on the life of Prince Philip. We're talking to people that knew him or had a strong connection to him. One thing that people might not realise about the Duke of Edinburgh was that the Prince was a Freemason. Let's talk more about that with the Chief Executive of the United Grand Lodge of England, Dr. David Staples. A very good evening to you, Doctor. What do you think drew the Duke to Freemasonry?
Well, as you say, not many people know that he was a Freemason, but indeed he has spent well over 6 decades as a member of the United Grand Lodge of England. He was brought in 1952 at the age of 31 years, and he was introduced by his father-in-law, King George VI, who was our Grand Master for a time. And it's interesting to reflect on the lessons which Freemasonry teaches you as a person and how that may have influenced his life.
And do we know which lodge he was in?
Yes, he was a member of Navy Lodge, which meets in London and has a rather illustrious history. In fact, it's had 4 monarchs as past members: King Edward VII, King Edward VIII, King George VI and King George II of the Hellenes.
And of course, Navy Lodge must have a strong connection with that branch of the military.
It does indeed. I mean, it's the premium Navy Lodge in the world, really. There are a number of naval officers over its illustrious history who have been members. But there's lodges that have all sorts of different people from all sorts of different backgrounds. I wouldn't want to give the wrong impression about Freemasonry. We take people from all races, backgrounds, religions, cultures, classes. And it's, I think everybody who joins, firstly, has an enormous amount of fun, and secondly, learns something about life from it.
Well, as you said, there's a varied range of people who are Freemasons, but he was a senior member of the royal family. Did he have any sort of special ceremony when he joined, or was it sort of the same as everyone else gets?
Well, he goes through exactly the same ceremonies as every other Freemason pretty much the world over. There are 3 that we do within our meetings, and it's really about imparting 3 fundamental philosophical points. The first degree, which is the ceremony of initiation, that teaches you the importance of equality. So whether you're a king or a duke, or indeed, like me, the son of a forklift truck driver, you are taught that everybody has equal worth. But some people will do better than others, and it's the duty of those people that have done better to think on those less fortunate themselves and look after them. And from that comes the enormous sort of drive that Freemasons have to do charitable work. £42 million raised last year, 18.5 million hours of unpaid civic and social volunteering work. This is in a Freemason's DNA.
And we know how important charity work was to the Duke. Did he always take a keen interest in whatever Freemasons and his lodge were doing in terms of charity work?
Well, we're sort of quietly proud of the fact that when he stepped back a little from public life in 2017, he gave up a number of his patronages. And of course, he did a huge amount. He was involved with, I think, over 900 different organisations, either as honorary member or a president or actively supporting them. And we were one of the ones he hung on to. And we like to think that's because actually he rather enjoyed his time with us as a younger man.
Absolutely. There must be so many stories. I mean, just reading about him over the last week, he had such a sense of fun and interest in so many things. He always seemed to want to be as knowledgeable about everything that he was involved in. Is that the sense that you got?
I mean, certainly one of the things that I have picked up since his sad death is just the sheer volume of things that he was interested in, the knowledge that he had across a very wide breadth of subjects, and the fact that he took a personal interest in so many things really before their time. The environment, all sorts of different things which really have come into the fore in the last 2 decades or so. But of course, he was there much earlier than that as an advocate.
And just looking ahead to tomorrow, will the United Grand Lodge of England be marking the funeral in any particular way, or the minute's silence?
We certainly will be marking the minute's silence. In terms of what the United Grand Lodge of England is doing, we've actually launched a campaign inviting our 200,000 members to raise funds for the charities that he dedicated his life to. And we're already up at around £120,000, and we're yet to decide quite how to disperse that. But I think that's the most fitting way that we could mark his life and the enormous contribution that he made to public life.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us here on LBC News.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Chris.
The Chief Executive of United Grand Lodge of England, Dr. David Staples there.